Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our public meeting for Thursday, August 3rd. Would you please join me in the pledge? Oh, there it goes. Thanks. Missoula County would like to acknowledge this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Do we have any public announcements?
Closed captioning. Hello, everyone. If you are joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you're joining us in person, we'll have closed captioning on all the screens here in the Sophie Louise room. And we also have assisted listening devices available. Please come to me if you would like one. We ask that all speakers today, please remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. There will be multiple chances during the meeting for public comment virtually. During those times, if you would like to speak, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. If you are on Microsoft Teams, this is a small hand button. If you're calling in on the phone, you will need to hit *5 to raise your hand. Then once called on, you will need to hit *6 to unmute. If you have any questions or concerns, please find me during the meeting and let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, our current claims list. Claims received as of July 21st, 2023 to July 25th, 2023 by the Commissioner's Office. Total $2,156,537.79. We have 4 hearings today. The first one is the Wilson Family Transfer.
Yeah, Commissioners, John Hart, Deputy County Attorney for the record. I'm going to kick this one off. And I'm going to start out by admitting something that my wife knows very well. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. And on July 13th, we heard this particular transfer application, and I told you at that time that I was aware that the legislature had considered legislation to specifically allow family transfers to children of the applicant who are minors, but that I thought that legislation had failed to pass. I was wrong. That legislation passed and it was effective on the governor's signature. So you'll recall that part of the reason that you denied that application was that Mr. Wilson's daughter is 17. She's still a minor. And so after that meeting, I went back to my office and somebody told me, they said, "Oh, John, you're wrong. That legislation passed." And I thought about that, and I talked to each one of you, including Commissioner Strohmeyer, talked to some folks from the planning department, and it was my recommendation to the 3 of you commissioners after those conversations that we reconsider Mr. Wilson, the Wilson family transfer. And so that's why this is back in front of you today. And again, my recommendation for reconsideration is because the legislature has specifically allowed family transfers to minor children. We cannot consider the fact that the recipient is still a minor in the calculus of whether or not to grant or deny that application. So do you have any questions for me?
No, thanks, John. Since we've had a chance to talk about this, I understand.
Okay. So with that, I would recommend that you make a motion. And Glenn's brought it up on the Green, move that the July 13th, 2023 BCC hearing decision to deny the Wilsons' request to utilize the family transfer be reconsidered.
Thanks. I move to reconsider the request, I move that the July 13th, 2023 BCC hearing decision to deny the request by Amber and John Wilson to utilize the family transfer exemption be reconsidered.
Second that. Any public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And commissioners, I'm just going to very briefly reintroduce this application and share the facts for the record. So this is 9850 Anderson Road. The proposal is from Amber and John to do a 2-track split to 1 existing track. One exemption or rebuttable presumption was triggered, and that is a shared common road. This exhibit shares tract 1, which will remain with the applicant. It is 47.6 acres. Tract 2, 1 acre, and that will be the tract that goes to Lillian. And then, John, could I have you say your name for the record?
John R. Wilson.
John, at the previous hearing, you answered questions, and has any of that information changed since that time?
No.
So with that, we do have a staff recommendation, and I'm here for any questions.
I'm just grateful for staff for catching this, and apologies, John.
Same.
I move to approve the request by Amber and John Wilson to utilize the family transfer exemption as presented in the exemption application and affidavit.
I'll second that. And any public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks for your time, commissioners.
Yes, you are next. We have a resolution to adopt and announce the naming of the new Missoula County Fairgrounds Arena and Grandstand.
So I'm going to briefly introduce this item and then pass it off to Billy Ayers to do a presentation about the new grandstands and arena and what it means to this community and how it's going to be used. So the existing grandstands and bleachers for the fairgrounds were built in 1951 and 1954 respectively. So the grandstands are what's under the roof and the bleachers are what's next to the roof. They're both going to be replaced, and they've served the residents of Missoula County faithfully for over half a century and are well beyond their useful life. And they're going to be retired in 2023. And I do see Tom Badette. Did I see Tom Badette here? No, I saw A&E. Our architect is here if you have any questions about that. But we did have, DCI has been, 5 years ago, DCR's structural engineering firm, Tom Badette, who has a wonderful reputation for historic properties, told us that the existing grandstands have 5 years left in their lifespan. And every year they've come out and they've given us permission that said they're safe to use during the fair. This year, DCI came out and said they're safe to use during this fair and we're not coming out again. It's been 5 years. It's time for them to be retired. And so we plan to rebuild the landmark grandstands and arena in 2024. And in doing our fundraising, Bob Burns, who I don't know if Bob is here, but there he is the chair of our foundation board and the campaign for the capital campaign for the fairgrounds. And he's also the president of Stockman Bank here in Missoula. And they also gave a very generous gift. So Bob and Billy and I met with the Bauer family, Doug and Adam, who own Missoula Concrete Construction. And we told them about our plans and they were really excited, and they did agree to donate all the concrete risers for the new grandstands as an in-kind donation. And so this company, for an approximate value of $750,000, this company has built. But they built the risers at Washington Grizzly Stadium, Oregon Ducks Stadium. Very, very, very solid, no pun intended, reputation all around the Pacific Northwest. And I should say that the wheels were greased a little bit by their highly valued employee, Dale Klaus, who's been there since he was 16 years old. And so in these conversations that I've been having with Adam Bauer, we've been talking through the generous gift, and Missoula Concrete Construction decided that instead of, they were going to get naming rights or naming recognition because of this very generous gift. And instead of naming it after their company, they wanted to name it after their family and Dale Klaus's family, who has been such a loyal employee for them for the past few decades. And for us, it is a fabulous fit because Dale also serves on the Missoula Fairgrounds Foundation. Like I said, he lined up that first meeting with us. And 3 generations of Klaus family members have participated in Missoula County 4-H. Dale and his father Harvey served as Western Montana Fair superintendents for over 40 years combined. And Harvey was Man of the Year at the 1984 Western Montana Fair. So this is a very old Missoula family. And the contract and resolution before you today is to accept this gift and recognize the Klaus and Bauer families for their generosity, community dedication, and commitment to Missoula County by naming the arena and grandstands after them, the Klaus Bauer Arena, as well as signing that contract to accept this gift. The agreement for the contract was reviewed by our county attorney and was drafted by Dorsey Whitney, Courtney Ellis, who does a lot of these types of agreements. So we're in good hands. And I would just like to say thank you so much to the Bauer family and to Dale Klaus. Just on a personal note, it's really been wonderful working with them this past year, and Dale this past, forever. It's really, my hands are shaking because it's so exciting. And Dale really embodies what we talk about a lot when we say bridges the urban and rural divide. Dale, the Klaus family, the land that they own, they're an old Missoula family, and the land that they own is where the Poplar Farm is for the city of Missoula. They've also done they let the city experiment with sanctioned camping, and just really willing to take a leap to be partners with local government, and just a gem of a guy, just the nicest people. And so I'm really happy to pass this off to Billy to do a quick presentation about the grandstands, and then we will open it up so everybody in the room can say nice things about Dale and Adam and Doug.
Thanks, Emily. Billy, is your mic on?
Green is good.
Yeah.
All right, so is there a pointer? I didn't know if there was one. Thanks, I'm sorry. So the spot we're looking for is, it doesn't show up on the screen, is the grandstand. If you'll circle that with your mouse, Flana. So in the original master plan, you see that the grandstand is actually placed a little bit further south in this drawing. But with the changes in budget and our needs, we need to stay close and up to our fair office. Flana, if you can point out where the fair office is. So in this next drawing, you're going to see kind of an overlay of the next drawing. Did it come up? Okay. In this next drawing, you can see just a bit of an overlay where the existing grandstands are and where the new grands will sit on that same footprint going forward, so that we can utilize the existing restrooms and keep everything real central, close to the two plazas that we used during the Western Montana Fair, which of course is next week, starting the 9th. Next slide. So one of the things we did is we knew that we were going to have to just redesign the grandstands, and we did extensive research using the Cowboy Channel, going to different rodeos, other grandstand facilities, stock shows, and working with our contract personnel. They gave us some real insight on some of the best places to go after they'd been to Missoula and understood that what we want is something that was really great community connection. So what you're seeing in this picture here is the previous arena design, where you can see the action is really distant from the spectators because there was always room for the racetrack and a walkway or two. So we, this is the design we're kind of moving away from. It's the design we have right now. I'm ready for the next slide. Then the trend moved towards VIP suites, and this is the best VIP suite because they've done a good job here. They have all open glass on all four sides, and yeah, you can see any direction, but if you look closely, you'll find that most of those seats are empty, and the people that are in those suites on a Saturday night in the bull riding are disengaged from the action. So we thought, let's do better. Next slide. And so we're opting for community connection. And this is the new facility that was just added to Pikes Peak. You'll see a similar setup done in Kennewick. And even if you go to the NFR in Vegas, you're going to find that there's a lot more people standing in the concourses and they're actually sitting in the seats. The events really like to be successful, and that comes from the energy of the audience. And that audience, they really like to get together and be able to connect and not be siloed in their chairs. So we wanted to offer a combination of seated and standing in a new design. Next slide. And the other thing we wanted to do, if you remember the first slide, is we wanted to really make it an intimate experience where you could actually see the racers on the track. You could see the riders as they go by, maybe even read the name on the belt as they went through. So we have started all the action. The first row of seating will be at eye level, and very intimate experience is what we're going for. Next slide. The other thing is we wanted it to be very functional in that it could help us with some of the issues that we are still facing on the fairgrounds in the way of storage. And because we're not a rodeo in the middle of a pasture, we are the center of the city, which lends us to be very successful. So we wanted to be able to utilize our asset for year-round marketing efforts, for all the events that are going to be going forward now beyond the rodeo and fair that we currently host. Next slide. And so we have had great work so far from our architects. And here we have the new Klaus Bauer Arena. This is the side that will face the fair office. And so this is the north side. You will see that there's plenty of sheltered walking when you're entering the facility. And we can go to the next slide. Once inside, there's no more uncovered seating. Everything will be covered. One of the drivers for this is that it's more cost effective to have roofs and put your lighting on top of those roofs than it is to actually put lighting posts on standalone. So that's going to be a part of our public campaign, is putting that roof on that stadium, and you'll be hearing more from us on that. Next slide. And this is going to give you an idea of what the first row of activity will look like from the ground floor. The first row will have mixed ADA seating and regular seating, so there's no more segregation based on your mobility challenges. You're all mixed in together and can be with your own family. The other thing is that for concerts and things like that, you can roll the dirt flat and have a pit in front and have the band more to the back, to the south. So there's a lot of flexibility in this space. Next slide. And so I talked earlier that we wanted some seating mixed with standing, and so you can see in the green areas here, this is all of the standing that we've incorporated. The standing allows for elevated seating behind it, so when you are standing and visiting, you're not blocking someone else's view. So we have two main concourses. One of them actually does, in the next slide, you'll see this, go around to the backside. And the top one, the top green row there, overlooks the entire fairgrounds. So lots of handrails, lots of close seating. We don't have any big hallways that create gap experiences. It's all meant for connection. Next slide. And you can see here the two mezzanines, I mean, not mezzanines, but concourses. The first one with the black handle, black railing up top, and then the intermediate level on the second one that'll wrap around. And so this is what it'll, you can see the storage that I was talking about earlier that we need. We have two doors. We're just taking a small piece of the footprint and we're putting storage underneath so that year-round things right now that are stored outdoors in the weather now have a place, a home that we can use going forward for storage at the fairgrounds. So next slide. So I just wanted to say a few words of this new project. I've really enjoyed working on it. Dale set up the meeting with Adam and Doug, and I was really happy to learn that Adam knew where Kinsey was, because that's where I'm from. I was even more happy to know that he has some hospitality in his background, because, even though your name's on the arena, we're not too scared to ask you to bartend during the fair. And then yesterday, I couldn't believe that Emily said I could say a few words about Dale, because I usually tell Dale exactly what I think of him in the moment. So, we just have really enjoyed this process, learning more about you and your family, Dale. How your mom and your dad were part of 4-H, how your mom actually met your dad, it sounds like, at a 4-H dance. And then Ramona has also shared, Ramona Holt, who has been so helpful at the fairgrounds, has shared a couple stories on your dad. And you sound like you're just like him. He was cheating during the tractor races. So we come to expect a few things. I remember the first time I saw you was at the livestock meeting. And I thought, well, this is a nice, respectable, gentle-mannered man, when he says something, everybody wants to do what he says. But now that I've been here a couple years, I understand the real reason, that it's really your way or it's not going to happen. And I've learned that from some of the previous fair boards who apparently in Campbell's first year, they decided after the llama barn was built that Dale decided that a door needed to be on the south side. So the fair board said no, and Dale just told Campbell to leave for a while so he could put that door in. And then last year, I went and bought you all this new roofing material, about 60 rolls of it, unloaded it, and then you came in and said it was the wrong color. I thought, oh, he's a gentleman. He's going to load it back up. Nope, he helped me. I loaded it back up with him. We went back, bought the right kind, and then we came back and had to unload it again. So I've learned that if you don't listen to Dale the first time, you'll probably have to redo it. But I do thank you for everything that you've done for the fairgrounds, and look forward to working with you. And now I'll be able to look out my office window and see your name every day So that'll bring me something to smile some days. Other days, it might not.
Thanks, Billy. Anybody else like to say anything? Jerry?
I guess, is this on? And I guess after 54 years, I have to say something.
Yeah.
And I certainly have been very involved with the fairgrounds and certainly with Dale, and he's particularly his dad was on the fair board and did a lot of projects. And Dale has been committed every year that I've can remember back, and has been really making a success out of the livestock part of the fair. Even when the year he got run over and we thought we should take him to the hospital, he was up and going. He didn't have time for that. So I fully support the naming. I think it's great. I'm excited about it. I'm sure glad it's going to happen.
Thanks, Jerry. Good to see you, Campbell.
Commissioners, Emily said, can I say something nice about Dale? We could go on all day. I could, yes, absolutely. Campbell Barrett. I work for MSU Extension, your county 4-H extension agent. I've only been here since '07. Dale Klaus was firmly in place as a beef superintendent at the time. An extension agent, Jerry told me a story a while back, described a county fair as a major emotional community event. And one thing I've appreciated about Dale is his emotional level stays consistent throughout the fair. It's an exhausting week. It's the busiest week in every 4-H family's life. There's competition. There are ribbons at stake. People get emotional, and he's always a calming force. In addition, his memory for detail on setting up a livestock barn, converting an ice rink to a livestock barn is unbelievable. Every year, I forget where the holding pens were, where the show ring was, how many loads of shavings we need, how many stock panels we have to borrow from Axman and Murdoch's and Cenex, and all those details are in his brain. So he's been just a stabilizing force for the 4-H community, for the fair in general, and for me personally. So I'm glad to see his family getting some recognition here. So thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Campbell. Anybody else like to say anything?
How's it going? My name is Logan Foray. I am the CEO of BFK Presents. I've been a festival designer here in Missoula for 16 years. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for this project and really hoping it does come into fruition in general. I've seen many companies come and go in that 16 years. And many of them go because there's not access to spaces just like this in our community. Access to things like this will present opportunities for independent promoters like myself. I do everything from small club shows up into large festivals. I'm the director for Missoula Pride, which recently brought about 20,000 people into our community. And beyond street events and things like that, we need permanent structures like grandstands. And I don't know the Klaus family, but I do have a very close friend in the Bauer family over here that I've known for a long time. So thank you, Bauer family, for contributing to this project. And I just want to, again, express my support for this project.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Montgomery. I've had the privilege of putting on the Motorsports Night at the fair for the last couple of years, and using the arena as a promoter, but also as a spectator for the rodeo. And I just wanted to thank the Bauer family, Missoula Concrete Construction, and the Klaus family for this generous donation. It will be put to good use. I also want to thank the Missoulians of 1950 and 1954 for giving us the grandstands we've had for 70 years. Thousands of happy memories have been made by families in those grandstands, and thousands more will be made thanks to you guys. Thank you much.
Thanks, Ryan. Anybody else? Can I say something? I looked at Juan. So what say a huge and sincere and heartfelt thanks to the Bauer family. And I really appreciate what Ryan Montgomery said about thanks to previous Missoulians who gave us 50 years of these grandstands. And one of the reasons I want to thank the Bauer family, not just for this incredible generous donation, but because this is such a statement of optimism and belief in our community that we're going to be at this for another 50 years. And because of people like you that make that bold statement and will bring all the rest of us along, and we'll be there in those stands. Thank you.
Well said. Excellent. With that, I request that the board sign the contract accepting an in-kind donation of approximately $750,000 for concrete risers at the fairgrounds from Missoula County Concrete. Missoula Concrete.
I'll second that. And any public comment? Anybody want to say anything that we haven't said yet? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
You know what? I better just read the rest of this for the record here. Yeah. And recognizing that the gift by naming the arena and grandstands the Klaus Bauer Arena, and approve a resolution naming the arena and grandstands at Missoula County Fairgrounds as the Klaus Bauer Arena.
Klaus Bauer Arena. Now can we clap?
Okay, now we can.
And I think we just make an off-the-cuff proclamation that 2:30 is now distillery time.
Yes. Folks are invited by the Heritage Campaign, not Missoula County, to join at Montgomery Distillery to celebrate Dale and the Bauer family gift. Does anyone in the Bauer family or the Klaus family want to say anything? You don't have to.
Please do.
I'm Doug Bauer. I bought this company with my family back in 2000, and I was born in 1951, and I'm getting close to where I should retire, and so is the stadium. Same year. So Missoula's treated us very, very well, and Dale Klaus has been a home run all the way. He has been with the company longer than I have. His, from the story I heard, Harvey Klaus was asked by Dick Morgenstern to sell him some land so that he could keep Missoula Concrete, get them started and get it going. And the deal was, yeah, you can buy the land, but you got to take my kid. So that's how Dale started with the company back in 76, I think. And that's the same year I started in this business. And we had a plant in Billings, Great Falls, and Missoula. So I've been coming to Missoula on business for many years. And Missoula's just treated me wonderfully. So appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And I will just add that the next item on the agenda is also very relevant to everybody in the audience, and it won't take long. If you want to stay, you are invited. It will probably take all of 15 minutes, but I'd love for you to learn about the Midtown Master Plan and how we've been working with businesses in the area to coordinate fairgrounds redevelopment and redevelopment of Midtown in general. So.
Emily, is it too early to ask roughly when you think we'll have a groundbreaking?
Well, yes, because it all has to happen between 2023 fair and 2024 fair.
Okay.
I do know that we're going to demolish the grandstands, and they come down quick. Our last event is September 23rd. So they will come down after September 23rd, and then as soon as we can get the foundation poured, we will, hopefully before the snow flies, which I'm pretty confident will happen. And then, well, let's just say September 24th, tentatively.
So we'll see you at the groundbreaking. Okay, let's talk about the Midtown Master Plan.
All right, so thanks, everybody. So, all right, so in 2018, the Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution adopting the fairgrounds schematic plan and design guidelines. And so since 2018, the county has followed that plan to restore our historic resources, to award-winning acclaim, install sewer and water infrastructure, construct the Gerald W. Marks Exploration Center and Rocky Mountain Gardens, construct new plazas and trail networks, thanks to help from the Missoula Redevelopment Agency at the City of Missoula, and construct a new maintenance facility. And so the Fairgrounds is a member of the Midtown Association and contributed $20,000 to the Midtown Master Plan effort, in which robust community outreach occurred around the planning effort, including many community planning sessions held at the Fairgrounds. The master plan is consistent with the Fairgrounds schematic plan and design guidelines, which you'll see when Melanie Brock does a presentation here shortly. And in that, it calls for enhanced pedestrian amenities at the corner of Russell and South Avenue, and at the northwest corner of the Fairgrounds, as well as public and private investment on Russell Street and South Avenue, adjacent to the Fairgrounds, and a really great central park that connects the MCPS and the City of Missoula and the Missoula County green space. And so the master plan was finalized and adopted by the City Council on June 10th. And we would like for you to adopt it as an amendment to the Fairgrounds schematic plan and design guidelines. Thank you. Come on up, Mel.
Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak today. We're going to start with a 3-minute video that gives you a bird's eye view of what the plan entails. While Flan is bringing that up, oh, she's got it.
Welcome to Midtown, centrally located within the heart of Missoula. This collection of neighborhoods is home to a variety of regional attractions. Midtown has several corridors that connect it to the rest of the city. Brooks Street is the diagonal corridor that acts as a spine through the heart of the district. Russell Street is the primary north-south connector, and South Avenue crosses the valley from mountain to mountain, connecting a variety of Midtown destinations along the way. The Bitterroot Trail is a regional pedestrian and bike corridor connecting Midtown to other trail networks throughout Missoula and beyond. Where each one of these main corridors connects through Midtown, the master plan aims to create key moments of arrival, including safe crossings for pedestrians and cyclists. And where all these connectors come together, we aim to create the heart of Midtown, known as Midtown Junction. This area will feature enhanced streetscapes for walkers and cyclists, as well as buildings with active ground floors. Rose Park Center will offer neighborhood amenities and be a hub for entrepreneurs and local business owners. Southgate Triangle will enhance the area surrounding the mall and provide an improved pedestrian experience. Franklin to the Fort will support a range of housing types and community amenities, including parks, within short walking or biking distance. Lewis and Clark will improve access to local parks and walkable neighborhood services. And Central Park will be a regional destination for recreation, events, and community gathering. In stitching all of these areas together, the master plan aims to expand the existing network of parks and greenways, enhancing the overall permeability throughout this area. Now that we have a picture of the future of Midtown at a district scale, let's zoom into this iconic Midtown Junction intersection to see a high-level representation of how the master plan could transform this area. A recent addition of a multi-family building has already added some density to this central location. Over time, public realm improvements might transform this car-dominated area into a vibrant place for people and events. This could include temporary pop-ups like food trucks, art walks, and farmers markets. And as energy builds around the heart of Midtown, more opportunities for people to live, work, and play here may continue to transform the area into a place for people and the community.
Thanks so much. So that gives you a little synopsis right there of the vision of the plan, but I want to start as my slides come up with a big thank you. Thank you first for investing in the fairgrounds. We have a regional destination that is drawing people from multiple states and all over Montana, and that is the impetus to getting to the point where we were growing fast enough that we needed to do a master plan. Thank you also for Emily Brock. Emily Brock as that fairgrounds director and then moving into the director of land use and planning. She has chaired this effort. She chaired the feasibility study to see if Missoula wanted this. Missoula said yes, and she got it done. We've heard repeatedly along the way that planning efforts and this whole process usually takes years. Well, when Emily Brock is the chair, it doesn't. When she puts her mind to something and she called me and said, we're going to do this. And the Midtown Association said, we're going to get this done. And our other project manager, Ellen Buchanan from the MRA, when you pull her in, things get done. So we're so excited about that. I want to show you the whole steering committee. But thank you so much. Thank you for the $20,000 investment. This was a $570,000 project to pull together a really a team of economists and urban designers, grassroots engagement specialists. We're really proud of the outreach we did into the 4 distinct neighborhoods in this area, as well as the commercial sector along Brooks. And it really was a countywide project. Are you good? Yes, please. Lana, I like the music. Flana, as well as, I'll keep talking here. We're grateful for Flana and Xana and Billy at the fairgrounds. As Emily mentioned, the fairgrounds has become our community hall, our community meeting space, and we tried to hold as many of the master plan meetings, stakeholder groups, focus groups at the fairgrounds. And we heard from some local partners that it was the first time they had stepped foot in Midtown, and they were shocked when they saw the Home Arts building. They were shocked to see the reinvestment and redevelopment. So we're really proud of that. Also want to give a recognition to all of the businesses in Missoula County and our public partners who helped fund this. Thanks so much. We'll hop right on to the next slide. So we have been at this for over 18 months, and this is the final stop for adoption. I did just want to flag that before we even started talking to the community, there was a deep dive into existing conditions, and those existing conditions form the backbone of what we then knew that we had to take to the community and talk about what are the challenges and opportunities. 38% of the 15,000 people who live in Midtown own their own home. So with that lens and really going into the neighborhoods to reach residents and people who work and play in Midtown was important. That community engagement process was extensive, and it was a little bit different in that for other planning processes, people may have come in and dream big. What we heard right away was, please don't make big changes that make my rent go up. Please don't make big changes that will increase the property value of my land, and I won't be able to afford to live here anymore. So if you want to pop to the next slide, equity was a big focus of this. It was the core of our compass and our values. We did a displacement risk analysis on all of the pieces of the plan to make sure we weren't going to displace people who live and work in Midtown by parts of the plan. We heard consistently across the board, and if we go to the next slide, I'll just jump into it. We heard consistently across the board from everyone who participated in the process that Brooks has become this moat of inequity, adding more and more amenities on one side of Brooks while the residents and people who work on the other side can't cross Brooks safely and quickly, has led to inequality. So part of this process is the permeability of Brooks. It is probably the most studied road in Missoula County. I've been here for 21 years, and I think I've been at meetings for 21 years about how to make Brooks and Russell safer. That Midtown Junction, where you, our neighbors, are one of the corner owners, that is absolutely a major focus of this, that dark color around Midtown Junction. Notice the rebranding. There is no longer malfunction in Midtown. Join me in calling it Midtown Junction now. That area we're calling the Butterfly. That is your corner of South and Russell. That is where we want to concentrate all of our effort and attention first, while also doing the implementation strategies for land use, economic development throughout the rest of the district. But having it possible for a 4-H kid to get to Albertsons to buy lunch safely and back in time for their program in the afternoon is a key component. We did a kid charrette as part of this, and kids were asked what their dreams were for Midtown. They want a lot more ice cream shops, which is totally understandable, but some kids wanted a zoo. And although we can't give them a zoo, the Butterfly House and Insectarium is going to be a massive draw to this area. So we're so excited that you invested in that. And being able for a kid on their bike at Franklin to the Fort to get to the Insectarium is a goal of this. So this is, as Emily said, congruent with your fairgrounds planning, and it doesn't come up with all the answers for how to fix permeability of Brooks and making Midtown Junction work for everyone, cars, bikes, transit, but it lays the framework for now that we know how to proceed with implementation. And now we know exactly what the community envisions for how we want to see density increase and how we want to have more commercial opportunities for businesses in the area. So I want to thank you so much for being so supportive of this. The Fairgrounds is an incredible partner, and we consider it our home. The Midtown Association does absolutely everything we possibly can on the fairgrounds because we are so proud of it, and we want to partner with you on the future phases of your redevelopment. Did I forget anything, Emily? Oh, the implementation strategy. So these are the pieces. There are 36 action items, and they are grouped in short-term, middle-term, and long-term priorities. And multiple pieces of the implementation strategies are directly dovetail your fairgrounds master plan. So voting today to adopt the Midtown master plan into your fairgrounds master plan is an excellent fit. Is there anything else, or I could turn it back over to you, Emily, if we've forgotten anything? We do have some people who would like to make some public comment, so I will yield the floor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Anybody who'd like to speak, come on up.
Oh, I'm Debbie Williams, and I'm a family business owner from Trimper Shopping Center. I'm requesting your support for the Missoula Midtown Master Plan. We've been actively involved with the community planning process as a business property owner in Midtown. I'm also a board member of Missoula Midtown Association. Trimper Shopping Center had an opportunity to attend special meetings and express our concerns and strengths of Midtown. We were very impressed with the process of, as residents, community members, business owners, city officials were directly involved with the planning of the master plan. Trimper Shopping Center was built by my grandfather and opened in 1958, and it was Missoula's first shopping center and it was built on the south side of town, outside of town on a ranch. During the past 60 years, I've watched and seen incredible growth in the making of our center now that's in the heart of Midtown. Even Russell Street behind the shopping center was a dirt road at that time. So you can see how the city has changed so much in those 60 short years. We need a thoughtful, well-organized guide for the development of Midtown for the well-being of all of our businesses and our community members. We support this vision to guide the development of the Midtown neighborhoods. This was a community-driven effort to improve the future of our Midtown area and Missoula. I want to thank you for your consideration and thank you for all your support of our beloved Missoula community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Ellen Buchanan. I'm the director of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, and obviously we were very involved in the development and the funding for this master plan. I came here in 2004 for a job interview with the redevelopment agency and came a day or so early and spent a lot of time driving around trying to understand the urban renewal districts, and the one that was a pretty big head scratcher and for me was Midtown. There were two things that caught my attention. One was what is now the old Sawmill District. Why in the world you would have 40 some acres fence full of knapweed right in the middle of town. And then the other was the Midtown area and Urban Renewal District 3. It's a challenging area. It's an area that is probably the largest challenge for cities in the United States is what do you do with that first tier suburban development that was so car centric and now people want to live there and they want to walk there and they want to shop there and they want to walk from place to place. And that's not how these areas were designed. So I am thrilled that we are at the place that we are right now. Once again, it's something that I have been noodling around about for 19 years is to how do we transform Midtown? How do we shift the emphasis? How do we, make this a place where everybody wants to live, work, and play? I will say that having gone through 2 downtown master plans and watching and being fortunate enough to be a part of the success of those implementation of those plans, Midtown has a huge leg up. The downtown master plans weren't created until after the downtown urban renewal district had been terminated. And we had some smaller districts going back in within that original downtown area, but they didn't have any resources. Midtown has Urban Renewal District 3, which is the workhorse of the urban renewal districts. We have resources, we have the energy behind this plan, and I think implementation will absolutely be stunning as we move forward with this. So all the pieces are here. We're fortunate for that, and I encourage you to adopt this as part of the Fairgrounds plan. It just gives it that much more strength and that much more predictability. And that's one of the things that's so important about these plans is once they're adopted by the local government, there's predictability for the private sector to invest their money. And they invest, as you can see on Front Street in downtown and areas like that. So I encourage you to take that next step and let's giddy up and get her done.
Thanks, Alan. Anybody else? Can I say something again? You should, but I like asking. I feel like it's better. It's a bit more appropriate. So Mel, first, thanks. That was a fantastic presentation. Super inspiring. It's amazing that we get to be even small partners in such a fine piece of work. I do want to echo one thing you said about Emily. She is a force of nature, and we're also thankful a force for good. It's a fantastic piece of work. So great, and really excited that we could be part of the transformation of the heart of the city and have that be part of our fairgrounds.
On to the Renaissance. Okay.
On to the Renaissance. I like it.
I move to request the board approve the adoption of the Missoula Midtown Master Plan as an amendment to the Missoula County Fairgrounds Schematic Plan and Design Guidelines.
I'll second that. And anybody want to say anything that has not yet been said? That's a call for public comment, John. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. Yay.
Now you can go to Montgomery.
Yes, please do. On to the Renaissance. I like that. Lauren. And Andrew, I imagine too.
Oh, I know. And like, this is
There's
what
money.
happens
Yeah.
when you invest.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm right with them. Like, yeah, this is what happens.
This is what happens when you have a little faith and like some vision and say,
Our family showed that me. And we hot mic saying nice things. Oh no. I thought I'm complimenting people.
this is so great. So great.
That was really great. Love that Jerry gets to see this. Had a good turnout too. I thought they were all here for the zoning man.
All right. I think we
You better do
cleared
good.
the room.
Cleared the room. Jamie's watching, so don't
Yeah.
mess up.
Great. Good afternoon. Lauren Ryan with Planning Development and Sustainability. I'll kick off the presentation, then Andrew will take over from there, and we're here to present on the Missoula County zoning regulation maintenance updates. First off, I want to throw this photo in here. Oh, it didn't go to the next slide. Dang it, I spoke too soon. We have a fun photo in there that you'll recognize.
I like it. That's great.
Thought you'd get a kick out of that.
This is Juan's work.
Yeah.
It's good. She does good work.
Yeah,
She does
I
good
didn't
work.
give you credit, photo credit. I messed up there. So I just want to go over the information that's available to the public and in the commissioner's packet. So in there, you'll find a staff report, the record of the planning board decision, all of the proposed changes that we'll be discussing today in red line, public comments that we received, and then also the changes recommended by staff from those public comments that we've evaluated. So the kind of overview of what we'll go through in the presentation today is the scope of the updates, the public engagement process, the overview of the proposed changes, the public comments, and then a motion. Teams is very slow today. All right. So the scope of the update, so again, this is a maintenance update. So we're not looking at any policy related issues here. So the update included any typos that we found within the code in the last year and copy edits, housekeeping items. So just small changes that we found, context changes, and then also changes required by the legislature. So again, these changes that were proposed with the update are not any policy changes, so they will not change the intent of the regulations, but are maintenance updates. I know, gosh, gives me a lot of time to think about what to say next. So where did these changes that we've identified with this maintenance update come from? They came from staff internally utilizing the code, implementing them when reviewing permits during zoning compliance permit review, variance application, special exception, and just general day-to-day inquiries from the public. And then also, again, those staff review of applications. So over the past year of implementing the code, staff has kind of kept a list of where these issues came from, and also recognizing that, beyond today, there's always going to be more to add to that list of ongoing updates, but we'll be doing these updates on a yearly basis. So this is kind of just the first stab at these. So what qualified for the maintenance updates? So if staff was finding language that was unclear in the code, if we were running into any repeated issues, so, if we were getting applications in and continually finding that the same issues were coming up, we identified those. With the implementation of the code, it wasn't producing the desired intent of what was written there. And then also, again, that fix wouldn't change the policy outcome. So in terms of public engagement for this, there's a Missoula County Voice page that went live in mid-June. Andrew attended the East Missoula Community Council meeting, and we did reach out to Bonner as well to attend their meeting, so they were aware of the update as well. Covered all the required noticing requirements in terms of a legal ad and posting in the county. We also had a presentation with the building community as well, so they were aware of the updates, and we also did a little bit of social media outreach as well. And so just an overview of the timeline of the process. So on June 15th, the amendments were posted. We had an informational presentation with the planning board on June 20th. On July 11th, we had the planning board hearing, which they voted unanimously for approval of the maintenance amendments. And here today, August 3rd, the Board of County Commissioner hearing. And then if they are adopted today as proposed, we would be looking at coming back to the commissioners on September 14th for a subsequent hearing date, which is when they would become effective. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew. Oh, okay.
Andrew Hagemeyer, Senior Planner with Missoula County Planning, Development, and Sustainability. So I'm going to go through the content a little bit. And I just got glasses. Yeah.
I was thinking you were a contact guy.
I'm still not used to, like, they're just readers.
Oh.
So like I need them for here, but when I look at you, you're just a mess. So I'm getting used to this transition. The first thing we got on the presentation here is what we call Table 1. Table 1 is all the typos, edits, clarifications. So this is when we were just reading the code and we said, crap, this doesn't make sense. If you just switch these words around, that's a much clearer sentence, stuff like that. And we've got all that in, we literally did track changes in the table for you to see exactly what we're proposing. So Table 2 is the context changes. What we mean by context is these are the things where when someone came in with a permit or they just called our info desk and said, hey, I want to do this on my property. And we started reading the code and applying it to actual real world situations, that we said, oh, wait, this needs to be this, or it needs to be changed to that, or it doesn't make sense, or it's more than just a typo or a clarification. There's change to the actual structure, context of the code, but it's not changing our overall goals or policies or vision of what we're trying to implement. So what we've done with this table is we have the change, but sometimes the change was too substantive. There's too many words to fit in a table for you to be able to decipher, or the public to be able to decipher. So we created an insert, and you have all those inserts as well. But we also provided a column for a little context. So why did we do this if it wasn't just a clarification or a typo? So example is, we had a requirement for someone had to create a bike parking spot for every so many square feet of industrial space. Sounded great idea when we wrote it, right? First industrial project that came in had like 23 employees or something like that were going to be there at the facility, and our code required something like 56 bike parking spots. So it's like, oops, got that wrong. So that's the type of change we're talking about. And what we did was, like in that example, we lowered the number. So we're still requiring bike parking. We're still meeting what we want to encourage multimodal transportation and things like that. We're just right sizing it.
And real quick, Andrew, so the changes, these won't be lost to history, right? So it's like after like 15 years go by, and then suddenly we're like, why did we do it this way? And then will we inadvertently?
We'll always have a record of this. And then what we'll do is the final resolution that's adopted, we're going to attach all these changes to that final resolution. And then we'll keep a record in the actual zoning code on the first page. It's blank now. Well, actually, it's not blank. It has the original resolution to adopt, but that's it. We'll record every single resolution as we make changes to this. So there'll be this record. And so someone could go, well, in 2023 resolution 2022-75, this is what they did. Yeah. So there's no perfect way, but that's the system we've got in Missoula, Montana, the county of Missoula, Montana.
There you go.
So that's table 2. Table 3 is not on here. Table 3. I put this slide in the wrong place. Table 3 are the changes required by the legislature. There are actually only a few. And they're pretty minor. There was a bill that required tiny dwelling, like jurisdictions accommodate tiny dwelling units. It was a really kind of a nothing burger of a bill, because in the Montana Association of Planners research, there was only one jurisdiction in the entire state that didn't already, Libby. Not to throw anyone under the bus, but so it was like a completely unnecessary bill. But they in the bill, everyone liked it because, housing, and they made a definition of a tiny dwelling unit, and that definition, we had a definition, and that definition changed our definition. So we had to change our definition in our code to meet their definition. And really minor. And then the other change is there's a bill, House Bill 918, childcare is an issue. So they upped the number of children you could have at a daycare home. And so we just want to make that number the same as state law. So really minor changes required by the legislature. The other changes that affected zoning in counties actually didn't require any changes in our code. So back to the content changes. This would be back to table 2. Maybe I did have it in the right spot. All right. We made some changes to the section 3.4, which is the building elements. This is the form-based part of our code. When we talk about, we have a hybrid form-based code. What we found in the building elements section is that, we have these neat standards for making multifamily developments have a better relationship with the public realm around it, oftentimes the street, to make a better public environment. What we found is some of the building elements were repetitive. So instead of making people do two of the same building elements that achieve the same thing, we're letting you do a choose your own adventure on that. You got to do one of those two. It's like building articulation is a perfect example. We don't need multiple standards to articulate a building. You just articulate the building, We made some tweaks to our minimum homes per acre calculation. This is a really important standard that's proving a little challenging to implement, but I want to keep holding on to it and trying it for a while. Minimum homes per acre, this is actually requiring density. So developers sometimes don't build as many houses or homes as the zoning allows. They sometimes underbuild. And underbuilding when in a constrained valley like Missoula is kind of like in the long term, it's not a good policy choice. So, but it's also really hard for us to implement this standard. But minimum homes per acre requires you build to a certain density in certain zones. So what we need to change here is there are locations that don't have sewer and water, and they're just not reasonably going to get it in the near future. And unintentionally, it was we made lots unbuildable. You couldn't even build a single family home on a lot because of this standard. So we're making exceptions that in certain situations, you'd be able to still build a single family home. But we also have design standards in that we can require that home may be built on just a corner of the lot. So there's still buildable area in the future if we do get sewer and water. Because there are a lot of these locations we're trying right now to get sewer and water, like the Y, we're working on it. Bonner Milltown, we're working on it. But there's some areas that we are not that far along, right? So we're not, yeah. So we need that sort of exception. The next section is the mini warehouse section. I think we had like 3 mini warehouse applications come in since the new code. All 3 ran into big problems with this section and basically made it almost impossible to build a mini warehouse. That's an obvious sign that there's a problem with our code. Our requirements were too stringent. We need to make tweaks. So because there are places that storage units are appropriate. We do want to have storage units in Missoula County, and we've identified where those are in our zoning. But our standards made it almost impossible to build storage units. So some tweaks to that section. Basically, we had a 5-acre, you couldn't build storage units if you had more than 5 acres. So what's the relationship between that and this didn't make sense. So we do but we're not moving away from we don't want there to be 20 acres of storage units, right? So we still have a requirement that we have maximum building sizes in industrial zones. So the total number of storage units on a project can't exceed that maximum building size. So it's the same number for any building structure. So we get to the same, I think, intent in that situation. I think we do it in a much better way in this change. We ran in our access and circulation requirements in section 6.2. We ran into a couple of issues. One issue is that Public Works would say yes to an approach, but our zoning would say no. We don't like that. So we're tweaking this. So if Public Works signs off on an approach, we'll accept it. And we're going to run with that for a while. But I think in the long term, we're going to work on trying to get Public Works and zoning to be on the same page. But that's a longer project. And it actually has a lot to do with our permitting system. So as we update our permitting software. So in an ideal situation, people would come to us first, right? And so we would be able to say, these are your standards, and then they could go to Public Works and get the approach, but that's not our permitting system set up yet. But And there were also just some circulation problems that just weren't clear. And so we looked at other jurisdictions' regulations and I think made it clearer for staff to know when these things apply in access and circulation 6.2. In 6.3, parking lot standards, we didn't have a good description of what is, this is, I'm not going to geek out on this too much. I'll kind of skip over it, but it's a parking lot module. We didn't have a description of what that is. That is a thing that planners need to know when looking at parking lot designs. So we have a much better description of a parking lot module for when we review the design of parking lots. Our landscaping and screening section needed a pretty big overhaul in terms of moving things around. It didn't flow right. There was actually one thing that was just probably in the wrong section altogether. So we've done some pretty decent reorganization there, and done some work to clarify the standards because we were having a little bit of problem understanding exactly when the landscaping standards should apply, but they should be improved. 7.1 are hillside and development or hillside and ridgeline standards. This is a situation where we required too much process in certain situations. So, for example, our subdivision regulations said you could build on a certain slope. Our zoning regulations said you had to go through a special exception process to build on that slope. So that, yeah, no bueno. we had that happen to somebody. That's how we figured it out. So we can review the requirements of this section through just very simple zoning compliance. We don't need to make those folks go through a special exception or a minor waiver process in those situations. So you'll see that we've changed the process from special or minor waivers to zoning compliance, and a few of them from special exception to zoning compliance, right? Yeah, okay. So just trying to make sure we don't want people to go through more process and pay more money than they need to for our review, right? And the last section is the riparian resources. And the riparian resource section, really important part of our code. It's really big win for Missoula County to have setbacks from our streams. It's really important, not only from a water quality perspective. I mean, there's benefits to water quality, but the real benefit that we've identified is the permeability. We've been talking about permeability a lot today. We were talking about permeability of people in the Midtown Master Plan. Now we're talking about the permeability of wildlife through the built environment. And what we know is that wildlife will actually move through some pretty small corridors and that are surrounded by pretty dense urban development. We've had moose move through Greeno Park, mountain lions along the Clark Fork River, right? So we worked with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Water Quality District, the Conservation District, to create these buffers around our rivers and streams. And a lot of it is to protect wildlife movement corridors as our valley urbanizes over time. So really important standards. I think we got the gold standard too when we adopted these, the highest and best possible distances that the scientists felt were appropriate. And, but what we found was maybe on a few of our standards, not the buffer widths, but of a few of our development standards when they were too strict. What we found is with existing lots or where structures are already in or within one of those buffers, there was very, very little flexibility in our standards. And that was happening repeatedly over the past year, and that wasn't our intent. So we've proposed some changes to increase flexibility within those standards. And after we finish presentation, we can draw on Google Earth how they will work. So if you want to see that after the presentation, just let us know. But basically, if you have a structure, the old standards basically said you couldn't expand or your expansion was minuscule. of an existing structure. The new standard basically says the buffer, for more or less purposes, changes on your property to moves to where your house is, and then you can expand back as much as you want, but forward is no bueno. And we also we realized that why we allowed someone to build a house in a buffer in a situation where they're totally encumbered by the buffer, we didn't really allow their septic system or their driveway or their power line. So how the heck can you get a house if you can't build a septic system or a power line or a driveway? So we've created exceptions for that. When there's no other alternative, we'll let you do it. You don't have to go through any sort of special hearing or anything. We can recognize when that's appropriate internally to make that process move along. So that's the context within the code that we're proposing. So yes, Juan, please.
Was there a new definition or a clarification of wetlands, or what was the conversation around
right.
wetlands?
There were a number of comments. Montana Fish and Wildlife Parks commented on the riparian section, and they pointed out the definition of wetlands, like, hey, you got to have a definition for this and what it means. We did. It was just in a different section of the code. And so we're making sure whenever we reference wetlands for those regulatory purposes in that section to basically say as defined by. So someone could go back and find that definition. So we're covered in terms of a definition, and now we have a better reference back to that definition.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. A couple of staff additions that aren't in the tables. One, I would call them kind of omissions. One is in a memo that has been on Civic Clerk, so you do have that in your packet in the public. We realized that we made a mistake on the bike parking section. We missed a portion, and it should. So in the record, it should. Can you flip to that page, please? Thanks. Our standard said you need one permanent bike parking space per room. So if you had a 3-bedroom apartment, you would need 3 permanent bike parking spaces. What we meant for it to say is 1 per home. You need 1 permanent bike parking space per home. Yeah, so there's 1 long-term and 1 short-term. So 1 that can just be like a little metal thing outside, and then 1's like a covered space for a bike, right? Okay. So that's something we missed that we wanted to point out for the record. The other thing that we missed, an omission that we just caught, and so we've got it up on the screen for you, but in section 6.4.2, table 8, in the yellow, it should say landscaping there in the beginning of the sentence. We missed that word. And that word is consequential because that's one of the appropriate ways to screen things is through landscaping, and we just didn't have it, and it was supposed to be there. So as for public comment, we've received 3. Not surprised, this isn't like really only planner geeks are going to geek out on this and submit comments because it's a maintenance update. In terms of comment of consequence, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks provided thorough comments on section 7.4, bunch of different stuff that really, really, really helpful comments. The most important part is they supported the staff's recommendation for increased flexibility. LAD NOTEC is on the conservation district, and so they see some of these things because there's this relationship in our code between the conservation district and these riparian standards. And so he was seeing it firsthand. So he's like, these changes make sense. These address the issues that we're seeing. And then Jamie, thanks for showing up, Jamie. Jamie got comments in not on purpose, but it was pretty late in the game, and we have been scrambling to review them, but we have gotten through them all. We are suggesting quite a few changes, especially the riparian section, right? Jamie, your comments were extremely helpful. Lots of just making it better, like the wording better, Jamie's comments. So, and we have sent you, there is a memo that we sent out yesterday that has all of the changes that we recommend based off of comments in track changes. And that is also available to the public now. Of course, we do a staff report anytime we do zoning. The criteria for adopting zoning is in state statute. We did a staff report based off that criteria. And the findings really focused on how this continues to implement our Missoula area land use element in our growth policy. And of course, we're not going to write a recommendation for denial for our own proposed amendments. So it supports approval. And then we do have a motion, and I can bring this back up if you want to maybe play around on Google Earth, or you kind of get it and you're ready to go to the distillery. So your call.
But for the record, I mean, don't people want to see something, the Google Earth, like something that people want to see? Do we want this recorded?
Oh yeah, it's not as fun just to show it in a static view, but that's if this diagram is in the code and it's trying to show what the changes are. You can expand away from that.
Yeah.
Couldn't said it better myself. I have not said it better myself. Appreciate it.
Jamie, did you have anything you wanted to?
Jamie, thanks for your input to make this better.
Yeah, thank you. And again, apologies for being.
No worries. It wasn't your fault.
So if we go to the riparian section, and it's just hard to track and I didn't see the table until about an hour before I showed up for the changes, but thank you for taking into consideration a good portion of what I submitted. But in the riparian section under F, uses and activities within the resource protection area, I just want to make sure that we're not losing the context of roads, railroads, public levees, and associated structures. That just wasn't clear to me.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because in what we posted in the table, I just didn't include that because I only included what we were changing. And so I wasn't changing that section. So it doesn't go away.
You can still have.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have to have that.
Okay.
Critical. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure on that. And then obviously that wherever you talk about roads or levees or anything like that we don't have to do trenchless.
Yeah. So I totally got what you were saying in that comment. And so we were kind of saying such as, but I could see how someone might interpret that. Well, now you have to do trenchless because so I deleted the such as trenchless. So it's just low impact. Like if you just do low, and then we're not going to be the experts in that, So like the engineer or applicant would submit, how are they going to minimize their disturbance?
Okay.
And we would accept that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was good there. And bunch of reformatting. One comment regarding in the parking lot perimeter landscaping standards.
Right.
So table 8, it just seems pretty onerous to have a parking lot perimeter landscaping width of 6 to 15 feet and then also have to do screening of that parking lot. And so I was wondering, could that be an or, either do the parking lot landscaping depth or the screening requirement? This
get you.
Okay.
And what we got here is this staff omission that you have not seen that we realized. So you could do a opaque fence. You could do a wall. You could do landscaping. You could do an earth berm. So if you have to do part landscaping, you're gonna meet, as long as you have bushes that will grow to 4 feet tall, you're gonna meet this requirement.
So it doesn't have to be 6 to 15 feet plus.
Gosh, I would have to look at the regulations in the totality to understand that, but my initial reaction is that this wouldn't be in addition, right?
It would be an or.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, I mean, you would, it wouldn't necessarily, if it says you have to do 15 feet, you'd have to do 15 feet, but that 15 feet would count towards the 6.
So if you have the width, you don't have to do the height.
Well, so this, if you saw the table in totality, I think the table says you have to have a landscaping buffer around parking lots that are so wide. Well, if you, there are other standards that say you also have to have landscaping that is even wider. We're not going to make you do in addition to, right? I would think you would have to meet the wider of the two,
Well,
but not in addition to.
well, so when I say 6 to 15, it's like neighborhood center that has a parking lot perimeter landscaping required depth of 6 feet. But then it also has screening required of the minimum 4-foot tall opaque fence, wall, or an earthen berm.
That would count.
No, go ahead. I think Lauren's following you better than I am.
So the way the table reads now with table 8, I think how you're seeing it is under that, it says 6 feet of the parking lot perimeter and then the screening required. So your question is it the 6 plus that screening
Correct.
requirement?
No. So you're going 6 feet depth.
Yeah.
For your
Mhm.
parking lot, but then you also have to have a 4-foot tall opaque fence or wall or berm or something to block your parking.
Yeah.
You have to have both of those?
Yes. Yeah. So, but your landscape, like bushes also count, and that's the change we made. So
Okay.
so it shouldn't be too onerous, because if you're doing landscaping, you should be able to make it like screen that to some extent with bushes and trees and
Okay.
maybe
It just seems like
really tall
the
flowers.
depth is a little bit of the depth of your landscaping should be enough of a buffer from your neighboring property that you don't also have to put up a 4-foot tall fence to buffer your.
Well, yeah, I think, okay, I'm trying to get, so the issue,
Full and horizontal.
an issue is when this would only be applicable to when you're adjacent to a residence.
Mhm.
And the issue, like you have at night, people turn on their headlights and they shine it in your house. We don't want that. So that's what the 4 feet is for.
Okay.
So there is a definite purpose to that 4 feet, and it's, so if we just had landscaping that was like irises, that are low to the ground, it wouldn't prevent that. So if you have if you had a bar, right? I mean, you can have a bar
Sure.
in these places, and you have a parking lot. We would want to have some sort of verticality to the landscaping to make sure at 2 a.m. when everyone's turning on their headlights, they're not shining it in the neighbor's house. But it's only applicable when there's a residence next door. So if it's another commercial use or even if it's ag land, we don't require that height.
If you chose to do landscaping as your screening rather than like a fence or something like that, I think the way I interpret that it would have to only be it wouldn't be like 6 feet and then another 6 feet on top of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I interpreting that correctly? I think.
Not knowing exactly. I don't know exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. So I guess just kind of something to think about, and also thinking that generally, if you're a residence and you're next to commercial use, you're probably going to put up your own opaque fence. So then you have 2 opaque fences, one that's on a property line, one that's screening a parking lot. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it works. If
Seems a little
over time,
excessive, but yeah.
over time, if it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to work.
And then sorry, let me just find the next spot. In the hillside regulations, for years, the city has gone with a 15% slope, at which time they trigger the hillside regulations, and the county's been 10% since, I don't know, early 70s, mid 70s, when they actually adopted regulations. I guess 2001 is when they adopted the hillside regs, but, you know, so just for a little continuity between city and county, I had suggested going to 15% for your trigger for hillside regs. I don't know if that was included or if that was just leaving that.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not the worst idea. It's just, or, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but we felt it was a little bit outside the scope
Okay.
of our set scope. Because when we do these maintenance updates, we're not opening up the entire regulation to changes necessarily. And so we do want to put parameters on what we're changing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not that, like, we're going to kind of keep a list of these things though, too. So if it does run up to be a problem in the future. Did I get that right?
Well, I was going to emphasize too, like with these you know, if we're not proposing these comments with this round of maintenance updates, like we're keeping track of everything to, like, you know, reevaluate in a year, you know, so it's not like we get these comments and we're like, yeah, never going to reevaluate that type of thing. So,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay. One maybe suggestion for table 1 within the permitted and prohibited uses and activities. Right now, it's suggested that clearing of vegetation or grading, including the addition of fill, is prohibited on slopes greater than 25%, but you can go for a special exception. So that just doesn't make sense. So I'm wondering if that should be a special exception rather than prohibited. And then at the very end of this hillside section, there is alternative design, and right now that would go, or is proposed to go for a variance, and I'm wondering if that makes more sense to go as a special exception, since it's a design alternative, and with a variance, you have to show hardship, and that may be difficult for alternative design.
Okay. On the first comment, we didn't change that because that's been the standard forever, and so we just, like, at this round, we were like, I don't know.
Okay.
And
And I haven't had personal problems with it,
Yeah.
you know, on any other projects that we're working on, but
yeah, we haven't had an issue with
Okay.
it either yet. On the second part, the way we're reading that is, that section would trigger when you're going in for a variance, and you need to design something differently, then you'd have this flexibility. So it's not you want to have flexibility and you go for a variance. It's you've had to apply for a variance to something. So you're already going through the variance process.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
That makes more sense. Okay. And then just maybe going back to your comments regarding vehicular access and driveways and approaches. So we still have in the code within every single zoning district, the vehicular access requirements for driveway widths. And if we're deferring to Public Works on that, are we removing those tables within chapter 2?
That's a good question. Oh, I mean,
Because it talks
I
about how
guess I
your
don't know if we need to, is what, like, I know what we're looking at here. Yeah, I don't have an answer. Yeah, off the top of my head. Right. Yeah. Say, I don't know if 6.2 had the same width requirements, but I see your point.
Yeah, especially like with the mobility section of chapter 2.
Mhm. I mean, I guess we hadn't run into that issue yet. We had definitely run into the issue of the Public Works approach was being issued in a location that the zoning code wouldn't permit. We haven't had a problem with the width yet. that doesn't mean there couldn't be a potential conflict there in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, I can certainly see it. And Public Works, especially in some of your industrial districts, they may allow a wider approach to accommodate some of your trucks. Right, no.
So
it has a set driveway width for your primary street, your secondary street, your alleys, or a shared driveway.
So I could maybe try to come up with a solution really fast.
This and we need to adopt this today, or can we?
You guys want to work on it? We could come meet up next week.
Do you have a public hearing on next week?
Tyler or Cheryl could let us know.
Here's
Do it at an admin, or does it have to be done at a Thursday?
Well,
Don, do you know?
here's the challenge we've got. We've got a number of folks out there who are basically sitting here waiting for this to get adopted because they have projects that can't move forward.
Okay.
And what,
That's too late.
Maybe we can just knock.
yeah. If they, I want to just make sure it's on the record then that you want this section changed. Yes.
Yes.
Or is it changed or
Deleted.
or
I don't know if we would delete it. But what we would do is we would try to create a connection to say, these are your widths unless Public Works says otherwise,
Or MDT.
or MDT, like we did in section 6.2. Because we do want some sort of standard, and there, at not every instance, Public Works doesn't cover every situation under the sun, but the zoning does. So we would, that's the fix we would try to find, is like an asterisk in the table. What table number is it? You can just go to any one and it's the same in every single district.
ICL, it's section 5, table A, vehicular access.
Yep. So the table A, vehicular access in chapter 2, what we would do is we would put an asterisk on that table that says, these are the widths you have to meet unless Public Works MDT specifies otherwise. That would be the fix.
Okay.
Okay.
Good with that too, Jamie?
Yeah, that sounds acceptable. And maybe my only last comment is regarding build 2 zones. And I know that you guys hadn't hit on this at all, but as we're starting to develop like the neighborhood residential zones, which are one of those zones that you have to have at least 8 dwelling units per acre in. But they also allow for commercial development. And build 2 zones, as far as I am aware, apply to all types of development. It could be single family home, it could be commercial, it could be multifamily, everything. And the build 2 percentage, as I understand that, is that it actually determines the building size, like the width of the building along that street frontage, and not the percentage of the building that has to be in that zone, in that build 2 zone. And so, if you have a 100-foot lot and 60% of your, and 60% is your build 2 percentage, that means 60% of that frontage has to be covered with a building. Not
60% of the building has to be
correct.
on the frontage.
There you go.
60%
Oh,
of the frontage.
frontage has to be covered by a building?
So we'd basically be building things that look like walls. It'd be very
Potentially.
foreboding kind of pedestrian or
Right.
experience.
And I
Drive
understand where the regulation is coming from, but I think it was meant to regulate how much of the building frontage has to be in that build 2 zone.
It sounds to me, and from a lay person's perspective, it sounds like an attempt to have it not look like a wall along the entire frontage of a, let's say, a
Well,
street or sidewalk.
That's why we have the building element requirements that,
That
Break it
the
up.
the bump out.
right, and so that's how build to zones are intended to work.
Okay.
Universally. But we recognized, I think we haven't run into this yet, but we've got this flagged as something that we need to work on and research because so far it's working. So far we have this exception built in where if you have a weird lot, we can reduce the build to zones because there are in East Missoula, you got these weird, really long, kind of funky lots. And we've had a really strange lot where they were remodeling a gas station and so they needed to use the same, they couldn't move the tanks, right? The underground gas tanks, they're out front. So when they remodeled this gas station, they couldn't meet the build to zones because they couldn't move the gas station. We don't want them moving the gas tanks, but in the we've had a number other projects where so far the build to zones are working. But I think, as we're looking at it, we realize that there could be potential for them not to work. And we're looking into that, but it's sort of it's going to take some research and some time to think about how can we still get the best outcome. Because what we do, what it is intending to do is create this relationship between your public realm and your built environment where you're being surrounded by activity and buildings and things. And that's what our intent is. So we do want you to fill up your lot with the building. We appreciated the comment, but what we're saying is we don't want to address it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in general, I think the idea and concept makes sense, but if you have a lot that's, again, 100 feet long, and maybe you're doing a phase development on that lot, and you only are taking up the front corner of that lot, or that's all you want to take up, but the regulation says, no, you have to build that entire building out and have one large building versus two in two separate phases.
Would it work in phases?
Yeah, that's the kind of exactly where our mind is going with this. And there might be a way to allow that within a project, maybe even under the definitions of project area, you could say, this is our project area and this part of the lot is outside our project area. And therefore we just want you to look at all the zoning requirements just within that project area, including the build to zone. And that would allow you to have future develop. That's one possible solution, and writing that into the code right now would have to be, we would have to come up with a zoning interpretation. And yeah. So especially if you had, I think theoretically what we're seeing is if you had 40 acres and there are some big tracts that would have to apply to build to zones, I think theoretically you're thinking they're going to come in with this development master plan and cut everything up, but it doesn't always play out that way. And so a build to area on a 40 acre lot is big, 1,400 feet, so. I think we recognize it and appreciate that Jamie saw that as this is where we want to think about the solutions for this one. And the beauty of, I think, doing these maintenance updates is that we don't have it's not an emergency always to fix everything right away. But if we do run into a situation where something is an emergency, we can bring forward an amendment at any time. Yeah.
Feeling good about things as they are. What are we going to say about the vehicular access table 2 stuff?
But I think it's on the record that you want us to mend that.
Yes.
Okay. We will let you know if it works. There's something we found in section 8.49AC, it addresses it. I don't think there is something hidden in the code. So what we would do is bring forward that asterisk into that table.
Okay.
I don't love asterisks, but I'm willing to do it for Jason.
Thanks, Andrew.
It'd be rife with them.
All right, and I think that's it for my substantial notes that I had. Thank you.
So glad you're here, Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Anything else? I move to adopt a resolution of intent to amend the Missoula County zoning regulations as recommended by the Missoula Consolidated Planning Board based on the findings of fact and conclusions contained in the staff report as amended.
I'll second that and ask for any public comment. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
You can go to the distillery now. I'm sorry.
Go, see you all at Montgomery.